Part 82. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 815. Yesterday at 4 o'clock in the morning, the remains of a white mecha was found in the southern Xinjiang area. According to the investigation by the relevant departments, it should be a foreign wandering mecha that entered the border without permission and was defeated by our stationed pilots. Now 3 generals in black from the military have already fully mobilized, conduct military exercises, and conduct a thorough search and exclusion of the area. Please ask irrelevant personnel to evacuate the area as soon as possible. Garin stood in the bathroom, letting the hot water pour down from his head, wiping the sweat stains from his body while listening to the news playing in the living room. The sound of rushing water mixed with the sound of news gave people an inexplicable sense of peace and tranquility. General in black, his expression moved slightly. Others may not know it, but he has been using hacking technology to search for information on mecha masters recently, and he is very sensitive to this information. The black-clad generals are another name for the Academy's black light troops, which is also the collective name for elite students. Some elite students who are stationed outside are known as black-clad generals to the outside world, and they all hold the rank of Major General. Each black-clad general has at least one officer under his command. A team of 15 powerful mecha masters. These mecha masters are not just ordinary mecha masters, they actually dispatched 3 teams at a time. Garin turned off the water, pulled the dry towel hanging on the side and put it over his head, and rubbed his hair dry. Wipe off the water on your body, walk out of the bathroom, put on clean and heated underwear, go directly into the living room and sit down in front of the computer. What happened again? It's really troublesome. He casually looked at the pictures on the news and pressed playback and pause. The white and red mecha wreckage on it was very conspicuous. Turning off the news, he picked up the watch terminal and checked the time. Almost there. Ding. Ding. The doorbell sounded. Please come in. Galen pressed a button on the computer, and the door lock automatically opened with a crisp sound. The door was pushed open, and a tall, sturdy boy walked in. The boy had dark skin, short hair, and his temperament and movements gave people a vigorous and resolute look. Are you Nono Siwa's classmate? I'm Mondo, a second-year student. I won't need to introduce my full name. Let's get down to business. Okay, Garin nodded and stood up. Please sit down. Do you want some tea? No, this is your membership card, please keep it. The boy Mondo obviously had a good impression of Galen, and there was no trace of contempt for the Galen family. He spoke in a completely equal tone. Talking. In addition, because of your outstanding performance in the finals, the decision-making team decided to give you level 2 support. For the specific content, you can use the card to check the web page. It is explained above. Understood. Garin took a silver white card with a black symbol of V on it and a delicate vine-like pattern on the edge, which looked very luxurious and delicate. In addition, if there is any emergency, you can contact this number directly. He is a direct contact of Lord Blanding. General problems can be easily solved by him, such as the little guy you offended. Mondo operated the terminal, and passed a number to Garin. It was a third-grade boy named Gurzi. Mundo smiled friendly at Garin. Sir Blanding admires you very much and told us to take more care of you, otherwise it won't be me who comes here this time, but at most an ordinary working member. Thank you, Lord Blanding. Garin smiled and moved the terminal in his hand slightly. As long as you understand. Mondo smiled with satisfaction. Looking at the more than 10,000 universal points that suddenly appeared on the watch, he felt very comfortable. He patted Garin on the shoulder. If you have anything to do in the future, you can come to me directly. You don't need to bother Mr. Blanding and Gurzi with anything. As a senior, it's my duty to take care of my juniors. I will never forget you, Senior. Garin nodded in a good mood. I will never forget such a generous and cheerful new member. Mondo had a good impression of Nono Siwa. The two quickly exchanged contact information. The third-year Mondo had obviously begun to have a little contact with society and was quite familiar with the experience of bargaining. The two exchanged their bottom lines for a while. When encountering any level of trouble, Adlong can go to him, but it is best not to bother him with any kind of trouble. 99% of Blue Narcissus people are rich and powerful, but no one will object to having too much money. Meng Meng's tutor has always been very strict and he doesn't have much pocket money, so he naturally attaches more importance to this way of making money and repeatedly tells Jia Lung to come to him if he encounters any trouble. His grandfather, who is in charge of the family, is the head of the Black Pan Territory Military Department and one of the professors in the inner courtyard of the college. It is easy to mobilize the City Defense Army Squad or something. Even hiring elite black-clad generals is not without discussion. This was the part that shocked Garin. General in Black is a military rank that can only be obtained by elite students who have at least the 5th level. It is surprising that such an inconspicuous college boy in front of me can reach that level. This made him sigh at the strength of the members of Blue Narcissus. No wonder the total number of Blue Narcissus students in the Black Disc Academy, where so many freshmen join each year, remains in the thousands. Obviously, this is no longer a question of 1 in 100, but 1 in 1,000 or even 1 in 1,000. Because many of the senior leaders in Blue Narcissus are already graduates, and some are still serving as senior leaders in the organization when they are in their 50s and 60s. Such a network represents an almost absolute aristocratic class. After Mundo left, Garin closed the door and mentally sorted out his network of relationships. Minister Blanding's side is somewhat stable. As long as it's not too much trouble, it's no problem to borrow some help. Then, Minister Blanding of Blue Narcissus, Mondo, Guers. Vivian on Xylan's side, Wade. Blue Narcissus's department inspections, the background forces in the Black Disc territory, and some small-scale garrison mobilization can have an impact. Judging from the investigation information, I want to use about 10 first-level mechas. The division troops should be fine. In other words, the relationship between Blue Narcissus is mainly to increase my actual strength in the Black Disc domain. He weighed the favor of the money he had given out this time. Then there is Xylan and Vivian. The main focus here is breadth and breadth of influence. Xylan's family business is spread across all regions. It is easy to get intelligence and information, and it is also very convenient to trade and purchase various supplies. It has a certain influence in other domains. Vivian's family seems to be involved in the black market and loan sharking, so some contraband should be available. For example, even Blue Narcissus would not dare to sell it openly. There are also mercenaries hired to handle external affairs. The relationship here is much more complicated than that of Blue Narcissus. He analyzed the significance of the relationship between the two parties to him one by one, how to take advantage of it, and how to use it to develop quickly when he was at his weakest. This was the key. But the core foundation of these relationships is my own development and strengthening. Garin let out a breath, and the exercise method was about to reach its peak. The Black Disc exercise method can only reach the first level. After that, the Academy will not provide more advanced exercise methods for free. At most, it will give the qualification to practice advanced exercise methods. After all, ordinary people without identity, you are not allowed to practice training methods above level 3. If you want to obtain the specific content, you must work for the college, or directly pay for it, or sign a contract to become a lifelong employee of the college, in order to obtain continued training methods. Without an exercise method, even if you strengthen your Peacock Kung Fu, you still don't know which direction to take. You must find a consciousness exercise method that suits you as soon as possible. The strengthening and advancement of Peacock Kung Fu is actually a forced advancement along the lines of exercise. If there is no way ahead, it will automatically convert this energy into other uses instead of strengthening consciousness. There is still too little understanding of consciousness. If there is enough information, maybe I can try to create my own consciousness training method. Unfortunately, high-level training requires money and identity. He retook the market for mindfulness exercises on the web. The prices of all the training methods are astonishingly expensive, and only the highest level 3 are sold on the market. Any higher level requires identity verification. If you are not a core member of the army or force, you are not allowed to buy it, no matter how rich you are. Garen's ambition is not just level 3. From his perspective, many of these training methods are just castrated versions. If you want to deduce a perfect version by yourself, it will take too much time and energy, and it is not cost-effective. It seems that we still have to go through the channels with Vivian and Xylin. A higher-level exercise method. The price will definitely not be cheap. Looking at the prices on the web page, which are often tens of thousands, it is only a third-level exercise method. Higher-end ones are not allowed to be sold, and the price may be extremely outrageous. Forget it, let's slowly save money first and find a third-level one to use. He started browsing directly on the web page. The content is not the same as what I saw last time. The prices have also changed. Many of the exercise methods have been changed to new ones. Some of them have obviously been sold a lot. Prices have been reduced. There are also labels with discount time limits, labels recommended by websites, recommended by so-and-so famous mecha masters, workout methods that made so-and-so famous, workout methods with the fastest progress, etc. After scanning it, Garen set his sights on the 4 training methods. Strange Power Warhammer amplifies the power of the mecha controlled by consciousness, and the amplitude increases with the level. The maximum level 3 increase is 200%. This exercise method has a unique and powerful effect in consciousness defense. It has a very good defensive effect against pure consciousness skills below level 3. Each layer is priced at 380,000 general points. Whisper of the Wind increases the control speed of your consciousness, allowing you to play with your enemies like the wind, and win with ease. Then in a moment of applause, the third level amplified body speed is 35%. At the same time, the speed of consciousness operation is also optimized and accelerated, suitable for speed pilots. Each level sells for 400,000 points. Galaxy Halo, a burst-type exercise method of plural control, which allows your consciousness to be divided into several parts, and at the same time, you can subtly control multiple units to attack. The number of divisions is divided by level, 1 is divided at the first level, and 2 are divided at the second level. The third level is divided into 3, suitable for Fortress Mecha pilots, and each level is priced at 260,000 points. Sword of the Sun, an additional effect-based training method that attaches a high heat layer to the fist of the mecha weapon, burning and melting the enemy's mecha shell, increasing the lethality. At the same time, high-energy radiation is produced, which has a certain negative impact on the opponent's pilots. Suitable for melee pilots, each level sells for 190,000 points. Note that this exercise method is extremely difficult to practice, so please purchase with caution. These 4 training methods are considered excellent for Garen and are very suitable for his fighting style. And the most important thing is that these 4 exercise methods have the faint possibility of evolution, much like the castrated basic versions of some advanced exercise methods. There is a possibility of improvement in the future, but many other exercise methods seem very powerful and affordable, and have high cost performance, but in fact there is no possibility of further improvement in the future. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 816. So which exercise method should you choose to use temporarily? Garen glanced at the 4 training methods in front of him, each with its own advantages and disadvantages. Since we took the long-range shooting route before, let's just take the long-range shooting route. He finally decided to continue the shooting style. This was a path he had never taken. Maybe he would make new discoveries in the expansion of his martial arts. After all, he had always followed the close combat route in the past. After selecting it, he moved the mouse to Galaxy Halo and clicked the OK button to purchase the first level. Snapped. Ding dong, your Galaxy Halo has been purchased successfully. The seller reminds you, this exercise method is difficult to advance to. If you need more advanced exercise methods, please go to Qingxingyuqi Ensing Academy for further training. Garen soon saw the download completion prompt uploaded from his watch terminal. It was a book with a yellow shell that looked like an ancient book. It appeared on the screen of the watch terminal. When you clicked on the book, the pages inside were opened, and they were all densely packed with fine text. The way of 1,000 gods lies in sincerity. The first sentence at the beginning is a condensed language similar to Chinese. Every part of the human body has its own potential consciousness, which is the deepest instinctive consciousness of the body: fighting, eating, defense, and offense. The most direct manifestation lies in the immune system and conditioned reflexes. Any cell tissue in the human body has its own independent original will before they differentiate and become highly specialized into other visceral tissue cells. They are the most primitive living cells. What we have to do is to make these instinctive cells aware reactivate. It's interesting. Garen glanced briefly and felt that this theory seemed to make sense. Keep reading. The instincts of cells are to engulf, attack, defend, escape, etc., but they all share a complete theme, which is survival. The human body and living things are composed of countless such cells, so the core instinct of the human body, the strongest instinct, is also survival. The desire to survive is the source of all power and the most fundamental desire for human struggle in order to survive. For a better survival, everything human beings strive for is this goal, because this is a collection of countless cell consciousnesses, and it is the deepest core will of every cell in the body. The way of the 1,000 gods is to activate the deepest will and mobilize the cells and tissues in every part of the body so that it has the instinct to fight independently. Theoretically, according to the combination of different cell tissues and the experimental tests of countless talented seniors, the human body can do this. At most there are traces of smearing behind it, nothing, a blank. It is obvious that the people who spread it do not want outsiders to see. Garen became more and more interested. The depth of this theory was a bit large, and it was obviously not something that a mere 3-level exercise method could cover. He understood that this thing was definitely a castrated version of a certain high-level exercise method. It seemed that the origin of this exercise method had a long history. After skipping the erased part, it is just a small part of the remaining training content, which is only 3 levels and 3 levels. The contents of 2 levels are blank and will not be displayed until he purchases it. What is displayed now is the first level, which is the first level exercise content. There are also many practice videos, explanation lectures, practical demonstrations, tactical applications, etc. attached at the back. Garen looked at it for a moment. He himself has now reached the basic advanced level and is almost on the verge of entering the first level of real level. Then there will be no need to take the Yueyang exam and continue pretending. This has been a long time coming for him. As long as this period of time is stable and appropriate. I immediately started to try out the new exercise method. Sure enough, the more advanced exercise method is different. I can clearly feel the progress. Compared with the black disc exercise method that I didn't feel at all before, I don't know how much better it is. According to this progress, it only takes 4 or 5 months. If everything goes well, we should be able to enter the first level. However, even 4 or 5 months is too slow. Now we just have to wait until the white polished stone arrives. Garen looked at the sky outside. The light at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning was unusually bright. I haven't been out for a long time, maybe I should go for a walk. I don't know what is being done outside the academy, and there is endless soothing music, which seems to be dance music or something like that. Galen walked to the window, opened the curtains and looked out. Through the gap in the locust tree, he could see that there was an artificial lawn slope on the edge of the alloy floor outside. There was a music machine on the slope and an open-air social dance was being held. Said it was a ballroom dance practice session. Some students are not talented enough and do not work hard enough. They come to the academy more to form cliques and find various connections. Such activities are not uncommon. The person holding the open-air dance was an elegant boy with long green hair, wearing a third-grade school uniform. He was standing by with a glass of green jade-colored drink and smiling, chatting with the surrounding students from time to time. There was a band playing softly in the center of the dance floor. The band was full of handsome men and beauties, and they were flirting with the male and female students from time to time. Garin came to this world and had a general understanding of the habits of these students. As long as he met his eyes, the atmosphere here did not care much about things like virgins. It was common for him to go out and have a room at night to have a good time. It is also very difficult to judge whether a woman is a virgin because the membrane is so easy to repair. And because of the cultivation of consciousness, many girls still have the temperament, figure, and face of a girl even if they have had many men. The cultivation of consciousness has optimized the genes of the race, and there are more and more beautiful men and women. Even if they are not handsome or beautiful, their temperament can make up for it a lot. Such an open atmosphere is naturally not surprising. Simply pull open the curtains completely and open the windows to let the room breathe. Garin then quickly washed up, put on his clothes, and walked to the door. The door just clicked. "Hey no Siwa, are you going to have breakfast?" I don't know when the dormitory opposite was replaced by a girl. She looked sweet and cute, with long light brown curly hair shawl, and was wearing a black vest skirt with a white background. The skirt was very short, almost reaching the top of the thighs, but the legs are very slender and round. They are wearing thin black stockings, which obviously means they are well taken care of. The girl smiled sweetly at Garin, holding a light yellow round straw hat dotted with white flowers in her hand. "How do you know my name?" Garin was stunned. There the other party pointed to the wall on the right side of Galen and smiled. Garin looked back and saw his name and class hanging on the wall. "Want to come together?" She blinked. "I've only moved here for 2 days. Do you mind introducing me to the surrounding environment?" Garin looked at his watch, closed the exercise book, and set the password. "Are you Lucy and Kerr's classmate?" He looked at the nameplate next to the other party's door. "Of course there's no problem with the introduction. Let's go together. I'm a new student who just joined the school. I'm not very familiar with the surroundings. I need to ask Nyanyo to take care of me. Kerr is very familiar with her and is not afraid of strangers at all." "Nice to meet you." Garin smiled politely and nodded. "Where are the classmates who used to live across the street?" "I dropped out of school. My grades were unsatisfactory, so I was asked to drop out. I have no choice. Even if I enter the academy, I can't relax at all." Lucian Kerr spread her hands and made a helpless expression. She rolled her eyes and said, "I heard Nyanyo is in the 2nd grade this year and is one of the top leaders in the college. I wonder if you can teach me when you have free time. I always don't dare to control mechas. I don't know what to do. Let's talk about it when we have time." Garin smiled. As the two of them walked along, many people on the roadside greeted Garin in an inexplicable and natural way. Many of them had only met each other before and had never spoken a word to them. Now they all looked very familiar. Waved hello naturally. "I'm finally out. It's better to go out for a walk if you have nothing to do." The two boys in the class met Jia Long and Kerr on the road and smiled happily at them. "Yeah, it's boring to stay in the dormitory all day. When I saw a dance going on outside, I came out to enjoy it and relax." Garin wasn't familiar with these two boys, but at least he was much more familiar with them than the others. The smile is much more natural. "I heard that Mondo visited your place a few days ago. Is it true?" a boy came over and asked in a low voice. Mundo, Garin was stunned, not expecting the influence of that guy. "Yes, Mondo is one of the prince links in the military world, and he is also a well-known figure in the academy. He actually went to your place in person. Everyone is discussing this matter now, the boy said quietly. It's nothing, it's just about me joining Blue Narcissus, and he happened to come over to give me the membership card. Just by the way, Garen knew that the news of his joining Blue Narcissus would soon spread. After all, other Millennium Trees and Black Roses would not keep it a secret from him, and it's not a big deal. Blue Narcissus, unexpectedly, as soon as they said it, the two boys' mouths suddenly opened into an O shape, and even a girl who happened to be passing by narrowed her eyes slightly. Lucian Kerr, who was beside him, even had a severe twitch on his face. The three of them fell silent for a moment, obviously needing time to soften the weight of the news. Garen felt that he seemed to have underestimated the importance of the Blue Narcissus organization, or its status in the minds of ordinary students. Is it the mysterious Blue Narcissus who is a princess and a prince ceiling? Another boy couldn't help but ask. Is there any problem? Garen asked doubtfully. How many people are there in the whole school, and how many can join Blue Narcissus every year? The number in one grade cannot exceed the number in the palm of one's hand. Oh my God, the boy said frantically, looking at Garen's indifferent expression. He was filled with millions of thoughts. A grassy mud horse whizzes past. Such a big piece of good news, but this guy didn't show any sign of it at all, and just wandered around like nothing happened. Forget it, I'm going to have breakfast. Looking at the two boys speechlessly, Garen walked past them minding his own business. Lucien Kerr was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly caught up with him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 817. On the way to the cafeteria, more and more people greeted Garen enthusiastically along the way. Many of them were guys who had only met each other once. When they saw Garen, they all took the initiative to say hello to Garen like he was a good friend. Many of these people are students whose family background is not very good, but they are not very bad either. Students from poor families do not take the initiative to approach him. When they arrived at the cafeteria, they went to get some food and drink and came back to sit down. Lucian Kerr took the initiative to sit across from Galen. Within half a minute, several students came over, said hello and sat next to Galen. This situation is almost exactly the same as when the princes and princesses appeared. Some students came over to sit down as if it was a nice day today, chatting on their own. From time to time, they dragged Galen into the topic and made jokes. The chat seemed natural, but in fact everyone unconsciously observing the changes in Garen's expression. Unknowingly, with Garen as the core, there were more or less 5 or 6 other students sitting around him, forming a small social circle. It also vaguely shielded other students who wanted to get closer, which also caused many students who came late to leave quietly with some resentment. Garen also figured out the reason in his mind. He has shown potential, has joined a strong organization like Blue Narcissus, and is rumored to be in contact with Mondo. Obviously, his future development is definitely promising. At least a school level or even major general cannot run away. For such a character, for the average students around him, it is the best time to speculate if you try to build a good relationship with him before he has developed. Most of these students hold the idea that opportunities will only be given to those who are proactive enough. If you have no initiative at all, no matter how great the opportunity is, it will be impossible. Sometimes if you are a little thicker-skinned, you may get development opportunities that others need to struggle for many years to catch up with. These people are real snobs, follow the crowd, have thick skin, and can only be regarded as helpers. Some small things can be done for them. Garen knows very well that big things will definitely be the first to run away. However, it was not enough to act too unique in the academy. In addition, there were also handsome men and beauties among these races. They looked at least eye-catching, so he just went with the flow. He sat completely in his seat and ate chicken stew with mushrooms at his own pace. Galen's way of eating was very strange. He ate it with bread and buns dipped in chicken soup. Basically, he took 3 bites of buns and buns the size of a fist, without stopping. In less than 10 minutes, all the food for 3 people on the table was stuffed into his stomach. He picked up the napkin and wiped the corners of his mouth elegantly. When he was reincarnated into the totem world, the combination of his aristocratic education and his huge appetite made him develop such a weird eating habit. He seemed to eat in an elegant and gentle way, but his food intake was surprisingly large. By the time the people around him realized something was wrong, they saw that the pile of things in front of Garen on the table was empty. Does Ñaño always have such a big appetite? No wonder the machine battle is so strong. Kair, who was sitting opposite, obviously deliberately approached Garen, and asked softly in a soft voice. "It's okay," Garen replied calmly. He raised his watch and looked at the time. "It's getting late. I'm going to attend Professor Serge's interference course." "I'll come too, there's nothing to do anyway." Kair took the initiative. "I'm coming too." "No, do you mind?" The person who spoke was a beautiful girl in Nanosawa's class. Her strength scores were very average, and her consciousness was only basic and intermediate, but her appearance and figure were very good, and she had a standard Oriental girl face. Black hair tied up, fair and delicate skin, a pair of big black and bright eyes, standard almond eyes and cherry mouth, giving people the feeling of white jade like a porcelain doll, and she has a youthful girlish temperament when she sits quietly in her seat. The girl's name is Wei La. She looks innocent, but is actually famous in the class for liking to cling to powerful people. It is said that she is often seen going to various entertainment venues with some rich kids from other classes. "If you don't find it boring," Garen smiled and stood up. As soon as he stood up, he saw Mia and Air sitting not far away. The two looked over with worried eyes, and they happened to meet him. "Why didn't you say hello when you came?" Garen smiled and walked over. A true friend is a friend who can never leave him in times of trouble. He separated from the crowd and walked directly to the two of them. "I saw that you were surrounded by many people and there were beautiful women here. Aren't I afraid of disturbing you?" Mia was slightly unhappy, but she felt relieved when she saw that Nono still greeted them with the same attitude as before. "Isn't this classmate Air? You are here too?" "I'm sorry, I didn't see it just now." Wei La walked out beside Garen and said with a smile. She knew Air, the little boy who once wrote a love letter to her. "Innocent, I didn't expect that the relationship with Nono would be so good, it was just the breaking point." Classmate Willa. Air saw Willa standing next to Garen, and a trace of loneliness flashed in his eyes. He had indeed been secretly in love with Willa. Garen was too lazy to pay attention to this trivial matter. The class was about to start. Anyway, it was fine. There would be nothing wrong with studying more. The courses in the college are all free to take, and you can go if you want to. Anyway, as long as you can pass the final exam, no one cares how you study. After becoming famous, this kind of situation is normal. There are many people who want to join Qianlong. Some well-informed students must have gotten the news that he was appreciated by the Blue Narcissus Blanding, so this situation happened. After chatting with Elmia for a while, Garen was directly surrounded by a group of people and went to the student lecture area. Kair and Wei La had completely occupied the positions on his left and right, and it didn't matter to Garen anyway. This situation was no different from that of other powerful children, and they were just used to disguise themselves and cover themselves. Time passes day by day. Soon the second batch of white-colored stones will arrive, and the teaching time agreed with Xylan will also arrive. Garen made some preparations, and then went to pick up the goods with Perry, the representative of Blue Narcissus, and Wade, the representative of Xylan. All three parties receiving goods for the first time need to be familiar with the process. The delivery vehicle is an ordinary freight truck owned by the family in Xylan. The first batch of goods costs more than 500 yuan, which is regarded as preliminary raw materials. Galen used the remaining tens of thousands of points after purchasing the exercise method to rent a small refining and processing plant for a month. The fully automatic refining production line can completely purify high-energy fuel powder to meet the minimum basic market requirements. But these are not the most important. The main thing that makes him helpless is that after absorbing all the more than 500 white-colored lightstones in this batch, there is no sign of advancement at all. The fourth level of the Cold Hell Peacock skill has progressed from 11% increase to 78%, and then nothing happened. Obviously this amount is not enough for it to consume, and more is needed. On the other hand, there are 20 or 30 bottles of high-energy fuel powder produced with more than 500 yuan. The investment is 1,500 points, and the safety freight is increased by 500 points. The main cost is 2,000 points. 25 bottles of powder are obtained, which is 200 points. For a 15 kilogram package, the minimum is 100,000 points per kilogram, which means the final profit is about 2.5 million. Taking into account the profit ratio, Galleons himself gets 40%, which is exactly 1 million points. Looking at the universal point numbers in his watch terminal, Garin finally relaxed a little. He also owed instructor Ham more than 1 million in surgical fees, and now he could finally see hope of paying it off. The next exercise method would also require a lot of money, but he had to keep up with the pace every month. Making money too quickly is not a good thing and can easily make people jealous. Galen worked hard to control the speed of refining the powder. On the one hand, he was afraid of jealousy, and on the other hand, he also wanted to control the market's hunger. As soon as the refined goods were thrown out, the Military Factory Research Institute took over directly, almost robbing them. This situation also made Garin secretly glad that his plan was sound. If he hadn't hooked up with the influence networks on both sides in advance to jointly cover it, the group of commercial spies alone would have been enough for him. Looking at the hungry faces of those buying forces, no one would believe him even if he said he didn't need to be suppressed by the forces. The speed is about twice a month, and each acquisition is about 500 yuan, which is not too much. The total income is about 5 million, and 10% of the income is 500,000 points, or hundreds of thousands. Xylan is not interested, but he has to pay more attention to 500,000 points. As a business family, he is like this, not to mention Vivian, Wei Di, and others. The income of 500,000 points a month makes both of them were a little frightened, and when they thought about the 40% profit in Nanosawa's hands, they both felt helpless. In June, as the first cooperation, Galen's total income was rounded up to 5 million, leaving out the fractions, and paying a tax of 20%, which is 1/5. The remaining 4 million, he received 40% of the income, and gained 1.6 million points. He used most of the 1.6 million to return the teacher Ham, and the remaining 200,000 to pay for the rent of the factory, and then distributed it to the salaries of the personnel responsible for purchasing the white-colored lightstones along the way. He gave Kend a dividend of 10,000 points and sent some to his family as a subsidy. In the end, he rounded up the remaining 100,000 points. And these 100,000 points were the real capital he used to build a base. At this time, as Nono Siwa, he officially entered his sophomore year. Become an academy sophomore. As for his consciousness, as long as he absorbs white malachite again next month, he should be able to break through to the 4th level. The total number of basic layers of the cold prison peacock technique is 5. The first 5 layers are just the most basic and foundational parts. There are 3 layers behind, which are the layers where the power is truly exerted. Garin has vaguely discovered that peacock kung fu itself does not greatly improve physical fitness, but mainly improves special abilities. This also makes him look forward to the upcoming 4th level, which is a level of qualitative change. As long as he enters, his consciousness will definitely be forced to improve and enter the first level, so that he will no longer rely on you yet. You can also qualify to become a mecha master independently. At this time, the Black Disk territory finally began to stir, and some rumors about the White Light terrorist organization began to circulate in the territory. It was said that the Great Light Mecha within the White Light organization had entered the Black Disk territory, breaking through the defense forces and the black-clothed generals. Blockade. The three major states, more than a dozen counties, dozens of large and small cities, and hundreds of villages and towns in the Black Disk area have almost all begun to impose martial law in unison. Fortunately, the degree is not very large, but various monitoring equipment have been greatly activated. The number of patrol mechas increased. Ordinary people just feel that it is a little more strict. Only professionals can feel the hidden undercurrent in the Black Disk domain. No one knows that the generals in black have actually completely lost the whereabouts of the White Light Mecha, and have been hidden by them in the Black Disk domain. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 818. The sun sets in Nukdu, the second largest city in the Black Pan region. The tall buildings are like penknives stuck in the ground, straight and straight. White light and green and yellow light spots flash on the building from time to time, and faint songs can be heard faintly. Between the building and the body of the building, there are suspended bridges connected by bridges. There are floating suspended vehicles flowing continuously on them. The car lights are like white fluorescent water. From a distance, they look like shining bead chains. A row of wild geese lined up neatly, slowly flying out from between floors, over bridges, over vehicles, and over several white mechas that were patrolling slowly. Wow! A humanoid white mecha raised its head and looked at the wild geese. What's wrong? Kachu asked another mecha on the side. It's nothing. I just see the wild geese and always think of the situation over there in my hometown. I wonder what it has become like now, the white mecha replied in a low voice. Let's go back and take a look when we have time. Anyway, after this martial law, the higher UPS have said that we will have more than a week's holiday, my companion said with a smile. Yes, I do plan to go back this time, the white mecha also smiled. Whoosh! Suddenly a white light flew over the city. What is that? The two looked up and noticed the white light. I don't know, is it a flare? Scan it. It seems like what's being fed back is fireworks. Fireworks? New type of fireworks? So bright. Forget it, keep walking. After today's mission, go back and have a good meal. The two mechas slowly continued to fly in the designated direction. The place where the white dot fell was an ordinary dark alley in the city. The white light floated gently in the air for a moment, then slowly fell to the ground. Suddenly, the air became distorted and transparent, and a complete man's body appeared above the white dot. He was wearing a white tights, with a line of red light flowing continuously from his head down his back, flashing and falling. Arrived safely, he smiled, raised the corners of his mouth, and glanced around. There was no one in the alley, except for a wild dog lying next to a few trash cans. Is everything okay? Commander, a woman's cold voice came from the man's collar. No problem, it went smoothly. This level of defense mechanism does not pose a threat at all, the scanning technology is too poor, the man answered easily. He pulled open the tight clothes on his body, and he was wearing a t-shirt and black leather pants. The tight clothes shrank automatically when he pressed it lightly, and wrapped tightly into a silver delicate wide belt. He casually wore the belt around his waist. The man instantly transformed into an ordinary young man living in the city. It gives people a fashionable and wild feeling. I have to say this outfit looks pretty good, Rika. Thank you for your appreciation. This is an affirmation of my vision, the cold woman replied. I once graduated in fashion design. That's really unexpected. The man straightened his hair, and all the short dark blue hair on his head stood up, rising up like burning flames. The man's handsome and somewhat evil face was completely revealed. Okay, I have to take a good look around this place. It seems that the black disk domain is developing quite well. Have a good time, and please don't forget the mission. Certainly. We will handle the search of the General in Black, don't worry. Turning off the communication, the blue-haired man smiled and strode out of the alley. Where he walked, the lying wild dog suddenly twitched, trembled, and fell over, and traces of blood slowly flowed from his eyes. Blood and water, and after 2 pops, the wild dog's eyes exploded. There are also clues left in the optic nerve, the man murmured and quickly merged into the crowd along the street. Black Pen Academy, inside the lecture hall. A white-haired lecturer in a black suit was frothing at the top and talking incessantly. Most of the hundreds of students below were taking notes carefully, and some were directly recording videos with a tape recorder. Only the lecturer's voice echoed throughout the classroom. The 78-year-old lecturer Andre is an absolute supporter of the interleaved death ray cannon fire network in the academy. He believes that as long as the death ray cannon fire is interleaved and dense to a certain extent, then in small-scale combat, no matter how powerful it is, the melee mecha could only return in vain. As for the statement that melee mechas are restrained by large battleships, that's it. Melee mechas are restrained by large warships, and large warships are restrained by long-range mechas. The long-range mechas are restrained by melee mechas. This chain of relationships detaining each other and restraining each other is an iron law that has been summed up in many wars. In the corner of the classroom, Garen was taking notes carefully with his notebook. A group of powerful children headed by him had naturally gathered around him. Several of them had good family backgrounds and were number 1 in their grade. Sitting next to him, some were taking notes and listening carefully, and some were laughing and chatting with the only girl among them. The rumor that Blanding admires Galen has finally come out. As the person in charge of Blue Narcissus, Blanding is already the current head of the college's logistics management department and is also in charge of Blue Narcissus' financial power. Her family's power is astonishing. Although she has never formally met with Galen, her support is already obvious. Wei La and Kair also sat next to Garen, each looking very close and affectionate. They could also faintly feel the disdain and jealous looks from around them, and couldn't help but feel a little proud. This was the difference between fast and slow hands. No, is that guy there too? Suddenly a boy named Monty next to Wei La said. What? Garen was stunned, glanced at the other person, then followed his finger and saw a familiar figure. With short blue hair, earrings, and a tall figure, the boy was lowering his head intently and recording something. It's Cole's brother who put you in the hospital for surgery. He also sent someone here last time to teach you a lesson, remember? Monty chuckled twice. What's this? Garen frowned. Not only that, that guy also made trouble for you in the finals and gave you a stumbling block. I heard that he made people spread your weaknesses about your lack of consciousness everywhere. Monty sneered. He was Mundo's. My younger brother was specially told by his older brother to get close to Nono Siwa, and now was the opportunity to show off. Others are afraid of those 2 brothers, but the family behind him is not afraid of Cole and Cause. Even if there are 1,000-year trees and black roses in the background, there are still blue daffodils behind him, who is more afraid of the background forces. What's more, the status gap between them and the other party in the organization is not at the same level. Are there people in the 2 organizations who are willing to offend themselves for them? What should we do? We are buddies. You said I would let someone do it? Garen turned the pen in his hand. It's all in the past. The more revenge you get, the more revenge you get. Let's forget it. You are really generous. Monty smiled. Nono is not a stingy person to begin with, Wei La said softly in a very personal tone. Okay, Monty winked at the 2 boys next to him. The 2 people sitting behind Garen stood up with smiles on their faces and walked out of the classroom. One of the guys with a strong physique moved his fist and made a crunching sound. Garen felt it, pretended not to notice, and continued to take notes with his head down. Monty smiled. I'm going to use the bathroom. Kindness. Bang. In the darkness of the corridor outside the classroom, a red-haired boy was hit on the knee by Hee and pushed against the wall. His mouth was cracked and bleeding. His whole face turned pale and he couldn't straighten up in pain. Two strong boys grabbed him hard. Is Kavas very arrogant? You dare to play tricks on my friends, Hee. I want to see if he dares to go out for his friends. Monty clasped his hands on his chest, leaned against the entrance, and stared at the red-haired boy with a sneer. You are one of Cole's best friends, and you have a good relationship with Kaz recently. I have already informed that guy to see if he dares to go out. Monty, we didn't mess with you, the red-haired boy slurred. You've offended me. Monty spat on the ground and rubbed it with his feet. Kavas hasn't come out yet? He's only 10 seconds away from the classroom. It seems he gave up on you and ran away out of fear. What on earth do you want to do? This is none of my business. The red-haired boy felt a little guilty. He knew that the group of people in front of him were ruthless people in the grade who could not even control the lecturers. They had powerful connections behind them, and even if they disabled one or two for students, no one will say anything. For them, it is just a small matter to spend some money. You're looking for me, right? At the corner, Kaz suddenly walked in and stood behind Monty. Seeing the red-haired boy's face covered in blood, his expression suddenly darkened. Monty, what do you want to do? Yo. Isn't this our elite student Kavas who has just been promoted? It's incredible. Elite students are amazing. What will we ordinary students do in the future? Lord Kavas is a big shot in the future. Bang. Suddenly there was a crisp sound, extremely crisp. Everyone was stunned. No one expected that Monty would suddenly take action without any warning. Monty himself was also a master of fighting and mecha combat. Even Kausa couldn't react to the sudden move. He turned around and slapped Kavas on the face, grinning ferociously. How about it? Elite students. Take action. Snapped. Another slap made Kavas' other cheek red and swollen. Why don't you resist? Aren't you a powerful elite student in the inner courtyard, and why don't you resist? Monty said angrily. What's the point of not resisting? Snapped. 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 Slap after slap hit Kavas' face repeatedly. He still stood silently, not resisting, but his handsome cheeks were swollen beyond recognition. In the classroom, Garen raised his watch and glanced at the image transmitted from above. He saw that Kausa showed no sign of resistance. He had no expression on his face, disconnected, and continued to raise his head and listen attentively to the lecture. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 819. In the pale yellow wilderness on the outskirts of Nukto. 3 black mechas slowly landed on the plain wilderness full of withered yellow weeds. According to intelligence, this area is where the original signal came from. The first black mecha with horns on its head whispered. Just those backward technologies of the intelligence department? It's probably because they were fooled around again. Another mecha holding a huge scythe said unhappily. Matthew, are you sure? Running around all day long will consume your energy. This depends on Ellie. Matthew sat in the mecha, still looking polite. Polly, how did you feel about the mecha you killed last time? How does it feel? The giant scythe mecha paused. It should be at the 5th level of consciousness. I may not be able to handle it alone, but with Ellie's interference and your long-range sniping, the process is still very easy. One hit will kill. Hee. According to the latest information, that guy is just a lone member of the team. You'd better pray that we don't encounter a large army before the big sister comes over, Matthew said helplessly. Level 5. I don't even know how long it will take before I can get in. We are still young, why are we so impatient, Polycut? As long as we enter the 5th level, we can become generals in black, and then we will be popular and drink spicy food, hee hee. Someone is coming. Be careful, suddenly the only silent Ellie said. Which direction? Northeast, the exact direction is unknown, the speed is very fast, Ellie said hurriedly, and suddenly she flew back. Avoid. The 3 mechas jumped more than 10 meters apart like frightened birds. Boom. A white meteor suddenly fell from the distant sky. Meteor appeared, and it turned out to be a huge white and red mecha. He was squatting half-crouched in a deep pit on the ground, with a string of turtle shell-like spikes bulging on his back. Do it! Kill him, Matthew yelled suddenly and ran away. Polly and Ellie suddenly separated and sprinted towards the white and red mecha from both sides. Damn it! They encountered a big fish just after landing, the white and red mecha cursed, and a black muzzle suddenly appeared in the palms of its arms. Chi! Violent electric light spurted out from the muzzle. In the sky in the distance, a dense group of white mechas quickly appeared without realizing it. All of them were marked with the logo of the Black Disk domain, and they quickly flew towards the place of confrontation. Oh! That's it? That's it? Oh! It's out. Climus's face was full of black lines as he watched a large piece of metal fragment flying out of the river in front of him and slowly falling on the river bank. His ears were filled with Chiyu's harsh screams. It's so wonderful. It's been so many years. I haven't had a physical feeling in so many years. Tisk tisk, Chiyu's tone was full of joy. The quality of these alloys is really good. I didn't expect to find such good alloy materials in such a garbage area. It seems that they are not all useless. Uncle, are you satisfied? Clin looked at the pile of metal debris slowly piled up behind him. Satisfied? It took more than 10 days to collect so many things. It's barely enough, Chiyu quickly replied. Okay, hurry up, don't delay, hurry up and prepare to assemble. Assembly? You want me to assemble it? Clin opened his mouth. How can I assemble it? I don't understand it at all. You're scared of nothing when I'm here, Chiyu said disdainfully. Hurry up and pretend to be looking for energy. But how can you pretend? Clin was completely helpless and grabbed his hair hard. Don't you feel it yet? Chiyu said in a rare serious tone. What? Your body's potential consciousness, has finally been developed. Huh, Clin didn't understand. Consciousness? When did I become conscious? You idiot. How did you move so many things out without consciousness? Chiyu yelled again, hating the iron. The nature of your consciousness is physical movement. Stupid pig. Ha. Ha ha, sister. Hurry up and do something for me, Chiyu became angry. But it's such a big thing. Can I go home and ask someone for help? Clin whispered in distress, grabbing his hair. Hurry up and move it. Find someone who is stupid, Chiyu became even more angry. With the help of me, the most taboo mecha core in the universe, you are still afraid of shit. Come on. Clin was completely helpless. He was not sure that he would be shocked again. He was fed up with the twitching feeling all over his body, so he had no choice but to go forward and prepare to find the lightest piece to move. Aiming at a small piece of black debris the size of a wash basin, he rubbed his hands, stepped forward, grabbed the edge, and moved it hard. Call. The fragments were surprisingly light. Huh, Clin was stunned and weighed the metal fragments in his hands. It's so light. Ignore your sister. It's because you have become stronger, you idiot, Chiyu continued to curse. You the hell think that all the energy I spend every day giving you electric shocks is in vain? Can you please grow some brains? Now that he's familiar with this guy, his true nature is revealed. At first, he was a bit pretentious, but now he understands Clin's cowardly character. Suddenly he didn't even bother to cover up. But how can consciousness be like this? Although Clin is stupid, it does not mean that he has no common sense. How can consciousness be so powerful once activated? Shouldn't the initial consciousness be very weak and unable to act on the physical human body? Does this uncle look ordinary? I'm telling you, the urine I spill is so delicious, not to mention the secret book I taught you. Chiyu was a little proud. If it's a general middle to low level consciousness development, it might be what you said, but what I'm going to do, will it be that kind of junk? He chuckled. 9 giant cannon training methods, training when the consciousness is combined with my electroshock therapy, the effect is extraordinary. It couldn't be easier to triple your strength. If you weren't such a useless piece of shit and you're so incompetent, if you could practice my method of galactic annihilation, I'd expect you to become a Superman in no time. Sensing the shock on Clin's face, Chiyu became even more proud. Amazing. Nonsense, why don't you look at who I am? I think back then, I was just a person who swept my forehead. Don't talk about this. Hurry up and assemble things. This is the assembly diagram. Remember it. Chiyu changed the topic and directly from the brain transfer a drawing to the past. According to your requirements, among the assistants you can choose, the first one is Dubai, and the last one is Berlin. Yes, Clin nodded solemnly. I'll ask him last. What a stupid question. This time, Clin rarely listened to Chiyu's words. Seeing him quickly and firmly opening the watch terminal, Chiyu also rarely cursed again. Soon Bolen's number was dialed, and the call was answered, and Bolen's handsome smiling face appeared on the screen. Clin, where have you been? The store is so busy and you don't even come to help. Alan. I have something to ask you. The more Clin came into contact with Chiyu, the more mysterious and complicated he felt. He didn't know whether it was right or wrong to involve Alan. But he has a feeling that once he goes down this road, there may be no turning back. What's the matter? Tell me. Seeing how serious Clin was, the smile on Burin's face paused. If there is an opportunity, you can truly become a pilot and fly the mecha of your dreams to fight, but you will have to face many dangerous and troublesome things. Are you willing to choose this opportunity? Clin carefully considered words, asked carefully. I can. Alan was stunned for a moment, then answered firmly. He lowered his head, but his eyes sparkled with desire for dreams. I want to catch up in my brother's footsteps. Becoming a pilot has always been my biggest dream. Isn't it natural to fight and face danger? His voice weakened, but his eyes became brighter. But these are just imaginations. Stop talking and come back to help. The store manager is going to be angry. He laughed again. I understand. Clin suddenly broke the contact. It's confirmed, the last candidate is Alan. Are you sure? Sure. Although that guy is not good, his qualifications are much better than yours. Well, the mark I gave him contains the training method of Ming Emperor Jisaya. Since you are sure, then I will activate the mark. Chiyu asked again. What does activating the mark mean? It means transmitting the exercise method into the other person's mind, and at the same time activating the body's potential with the current I transmitted to him through previous contact, reaching the first level of consciousness. This is what you call first level consciousness, Chiyu explained. It's so easy to reach level 1, Clin was dumbfounded. What about me? You are already at the first level. Chiyu was speechless. Of course, without my activation, you might be able to reach the first level if you get the general training method and practice it for decades. I would like to remind you in advance that the boy named Bolen has a strange body. There may be some abnormal changes after activating the mark. You must be mentally prepared. What changes? I don't know either. Next, you should practice the exercise method every day honestly, just like I asked you to do before. Find some heavy objects to carry. This exercise method has the weakest qualification requirements. All it takes is hard work. If everything goes well, it will be no problem to reach the 7th or 8th level of cultivation. I know, isn't it unfair to compare yourself with those who take many years to reach the first level of consciousness? Clint scratched his head. Fair? Of course they are different from you. Chayu slowed down and explained, your consciousness is enhanced and activated with the help of my mark. Unlike them, your consciousness has a big flaw. Flaw? What flaw? Clint became a little worried. Half of your consciousness belongs to you, and half belongs to me, so if I don't agree when calling it, then you will not be as comfortable as them in controlling the mecha. Moreover, after leaving the mecha, the power of your consciousness will have it. In other words, never let your opponent discover your identity. Once the opponent catches you without a mecha, your consciousness will only be half of the usual one. Hey, you know the consequences. Is this acceptable? Is there any remedy? No, it would be great if I could make you conscious. Okay, go get to work. Oh. Seeing Clint continue to carry and assemble the pieces honestly, Chayu gently clicked the activation switch of a mark in his core. That was the imprint switch buried in Alan's body in advance. In an instant, a little invisible resonance signal instantly crossed the distance and landed on Alan, who was busy in the pastry shop in the distance. Alan was placing the plate on the table, turned around and walked towards the counter. Suddenly, his whole body froze. He froze in place for an instant, motionless, and an inexplicable numbness slowly spread inside his body. He vaguely felt that there seemed to be something more in his mind, something very complex and seemingly high-end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 820. Bang. Kavis was hit hard against the wall, his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, and his body was covered with stains on the ground. He hunched over and looked at Monty and others with sneers on their faces. How are you? Do you feel comfortable? Monty came up and pinched his face. To be honest, I've already disliked you. You're the first-year chief, you're really amazing. Is that enough? Nyoto spat out blood and said expressionlessly. Monty looked at Kowzi's still cold eyes, and his heart skipped a beat for some reason. Are you pretty cool? He kicked forward hard again. Bang. The tip of the shoe hit Kavis's lower abdomen, causing him to bend over again. He curled up like a shrimp in pain and fell to the ground. Kavis remained silent, holding his head silently and not humming. This look always gave Monty a very uncomfortable feeling. The red-haired boy next to him was already dumbfounded. He obviously didn't expect that Monty would be so cruel. Forget it, Monty, this is a bit much. Suddenly a voice came from the corner. It was the voice of a young man. Monty looked back and saw a tall, ordinary boy standing at the door. This guy had dark skin and looked very honest and simple. His face had no outstanding features, but when he spoke, he seemed calm and firm. A feeling of, "Oh, it's the elite student Nichols," Monty said in a strange tone. "Give me some face." Nichols glanced at Kavis on the ground calmly. "Give you face?" Monty smiled, but did not refuse immediately. Although he was not afraid of Nichols, it was worth measuring whether it was worth offending such a promising master for no Siwa. After hesitating for a moment. "Okay, for your sake, let's settle this matter." He waved his hand and asked several people to let go of Kaz and the red-haired boy. "Thank you." Nichols himself was a little nervous. In fact, Monty was backed by Mondo, who was a skilled mobile operator who was considered strong among elite students, so he was often arrogant and domineering. Unexpectedly, he was really willing to give himself a face. Obviously the person who asked him to take action was not very important. He walked over and helped Kavis up. He felt a little relieved as he watched Monty and his party slowly leave. Inside the classroom, Garen raised his watch and looked at the situation above quietly without any expression. On the contrary, Wei La and Kair beside him were a little unhappy. Let him go so lightly? Isn't it too easy for him? Wei La couldn't help but said. It's okay, just listen to the class. Garen didn't say anything. He and Kavas were now at odds with each other. But this is probably one of Monty's purposes, to make him more dependent on the other party's background power. This matter was just over. After the day's class, Garen did not see Kaz come back to class. It wasn't until I answered the dormitory that I heard from a fellow student that Kavas had been picked up by his brother. There was no after, and Cole, as his brother, didn't say anything. He obviously planned to just endure it. The storm calmed down. Galen's life is also step by step, day after day. He spends several hours every day practicing exercises and spending time with Monty, Willa and others, especially Willa and Kair. Due to their own conditions, the two of them have relatively few people to contact. There are many sources of information, coupled with short-sightedness, it is very suitable to be a source of information for Galen. Monty and others may seem rough, but in fact they have a dark mind and are not suitable for deep friendship. They also have a lot of information that is not very timely. It's just a link to establish a good relationship with Mondo. Of course, they are not useless. At least with the help of Monty and his gang, Garen has gradually become one of the bullies in the grade that no one dares to mess with, even though he has no intention of becoming this. Second grade classes are boring. Theoretical classes take a lot of time every day, and the practical classes are mainly gravity acceleration adaptation experiments, which involve sitting in a small virtual mecha and constantly training to adapt to a higher degree of gravity acceleration inertia. This is to train the body's adaptability to high-intensity mecha driving and prepare for real combat. If you want to become a true first-level mecha master, you must have comprehensive combat capabilities. Such high-intensity acceleration inertia endurance also requires training. After accelerated adaptation, it is said that there are various practical courses such as radiation adaptation, combat environment simulation, brain development, tactical simulation experiment, etc. These things are mainly set for the human body's consciousness adaptation processes and categories under different environments. Garen also often skipped classes after quickly mastering it. Practice exercises in the dormitory, or discuss sales and other matters with Xylan and others. Time passed slowly day by day, and more than half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Snapped. The pure green billiard ball was lightly hit by the white cue ball, colliding and slowly rolling towards the side hole. On the billiard table, Xylan straightened up, wiped the cue with his head, and watched with satisfaction as the green ball rolled into the hole. She was wearing a white shirt, a small black vest, trousers, and shiny leather shoes, which gave her a sophisticated and mature temperament. Even in the blink of an eye, no one might be able to tell that she was actually a girl. And she is just a young girl under 20 years old. Garen stood aside, wearing only a black shirt, turning the club with both hands and watching Xylan in boredom as he continued to hit the ball. Bright and soft lights shine down from directly above, and next to it is an L-shaped black bar. Soothing and soft music is playing, and a female bartender is shaking the bartender in a dazzling way. The colored wine stirred up a lot of pink foam under the light. The two of them were in a basement of the Xylan family, which was very close to the college. It was a residence specially purchased by Xylan as a temporary residence. "How are the recent business sales?" Garen asked casually, bored, as Xylan was about to clear the field with one stroke. "It's not bad. Thanks to you, everything is perfect. It's just that the sales job is too easy. I feel a little guilty for getting the 10% dry red." Xylan looked at his results with satisfaction, smiled and straightened up. "What does it matter? Without your support, many things would cost more money. You are the one who should be at ease," Garen said with a smile. "Actually, I don't have any sales at all. As soon as Vivian released the news, A group of people rushed over to ask about the supply and quantity. Dozens of bottles of powder were ordered out in a few seconds. Xylan said about this time he was very satisfied with the cooperation. After receiving money twice in succession, he gradually tightened the cooperation here. The relationship with Garen gradually warmed up, and the two of them liked each other, so they naturally became good friends. There is no problem in this aspect, but in terms of your fighting training, your progress is still very poor. Garen shook his head. I have used various methods to train and teach you, but you just can't achieve what I want. Are your demands too high? Xylan was also puzzled when he said this. I've risked my life, but I just can't meet your demands. Let's try today's training later. Garen was helpless. As a top martial arts master, he also had his own dignity. If the students he taught were just trash, it would not look good on his face if word spread in the future. Although he was very wary, he only taught Xylan some less important fighting theories and common sense, and asked him to train according to these theoretical common sense, but the result was not satisfactory. He also saw Xylan's training enthusiasm. He was crazy and devoted almost all his time to training. You really don't regard me as a woman. Xylan was speechless when he mentioned training. Thinking of Garen's state during training, even a self-improvement maniac like him felt a little perverted. It's my turn. Garen watched as the last ball on the table tennis table was hit, and the waitress came over to rearrange the ball. He snapped his fingers, picked up the cue ball and straightened his posture. Actually, this kind of ball is relatively simple. If no one interferes, you can clear the field smoothly in one stroke. Like this. He flicked the lever. Snapped. With a crisp sound, the arranged billiard balls dispersed instantly, rolling slowly and calmly towards all the surrounding holes. Puff 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 puff. In an instant, a series of goals were heard. Xylan clapped quickly, with a look of frustration on his face. Although I know that your level of perversion is extraordinary, every time I see this scene, I always feel very uncomfortable. I have practiced table tennis for more than a year, and it is not as good as you learning for 2 hours. This is the difference between geniuses and mortals. Garen made a rare joke. Maybe it's true. Xylan shook his head without smiling. Let's go up. Kindness. The two people put away their clubs and walked up the stairs to the ground one after another. The entrance and exit on the ground was a magnificently decorated large living room. The large living room was entirely golden, and various oil paintings of laughter were hung on the walls everywhere. Some are pastoral life, some are urban scenes, some are portraits, but most of them are oil paintings of various mecha models. Under the service of several maids, the two washed their hands, drank some natural water, and each went to change into a set of training-specific clothing, a bandage suit. One of Xylan's training habits is to wear various bandages. The white bandages can wrap around her chest and some cumbersome and fleshy parts to reduce air resistance and speed up fighting movements. He is the kind of paranoid person who cares about any little bit of efficiency. Garen was different. Although he also changed into a bandage outfit at Xylan's strong suggestion, he also wore a special protective tights outside. The all-white protective clothing looks like a slightly tighter white windbreaker, which is both beautiful and practical. After changing their clothes, the two of them entered the actual combat room they usually use. A square hall of more than 100 square meters. The surrounding walls, ceiling, and floor are all covered with thick black alloy walls. This alloy called a sim not only has high strength and toughness, but also has strong automatic recovery power. It is often used to make mecha shells. It is actually used to build rooms here, but it also shows how wealthy Xylan's family is. Such a room would cost approximately 700,000 to 800,000 to build. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 821. Xylan has short green hair. Although there are some scars on his face, he is extremely slim and has fair and delicate skin. Even if he is wrapped with a bandage as a chest wrap, his plump breasts are still forced to stand out, revealing two very conspicuous protrusions. The smooth and slender body lines developed through long-term exercise, and the round and long-proportioned legs are tightly closed without any gaps. The buttocks were only wrapped in bandages into a trousers-like shape. Only the knees were covered, and the rest of the body was completely naked. From a distance, it gives people a wild and unique charm. However, Garin had never seen any kind of beauty, so naturally his heart would not be agitated by this view. All he saw in his eyes at this moment was a student with an extremely serious attitude. I have taken so many classes in a row, and I have completed the endurance test. Today's task is to sharpen my senses. Wait a minute, Xylan suddenly interrupted him, you have always been training me. I feel that my progress has improved recently. We haven't tried it in person yet. Why don't we give it a try today? Try it, Garin thought for a moment. Okay, but are you sure you want to try training? What? Isn't it possible? Xylan raised his eyebrows and said seriously. Okay, that's okay. I had this project before, but it was just a little ahead of schedule, Garin said calmly. Then it's over, Xylan laughed twice and bounced slightly on the spot. Attention, I'm about to start. Garin raised his hand to look at his watch. 1 minute. He said calmly, I'll defeat you in 1 minute. Try, Xylan was immediately dissatisfied. Call. Before he finished speaking, before Garin could even raise his head, Xylan rushed over with almost a sneak attack. He kicked his leg upwards and hit his chin hard, his long legs howling and whipping up the strong wind. If this happens, most people will definitely end up in the hospital with broken bones and serious injuries. But for Galleon, he blocked with one hand. Bang! The insteps of the long legs and the backs of the hands clashed at the same time. Garin was slightly shaken on the spot, while Xylan took a few practice steps back before he managed to stand firm. Use all your strength, you are too weak, Garin said calmly. You said it yourself. Xylan got excited and picked up the dagger on the weapon rack beside him, and lunged forward again. Swipe, swipe, 3 knives passed by, leaving a faint cold light. None of the knives hit, and they were all gently avoided by Garin, without even moving his feet. It's useless, Garin slapped his right hand down. After lightly hitting Xylan's arm, it made a dull and loud sound, and the dagger was knocked away. With a bang, the bandage on Xylan's arm suddenly shattered and flew away, and a large amount of blood stasis appeared directly on his arm. Enough. Come again, Xylan smiled instead of being angry, striding towards the close combat, attacking with his elbows and knees from 3 directions at the same time. His posture was weird, dripping with strong wind, and his state was as fierce as a pounced tiger. With a crash, she jumped into the air. She used too much force. Instead, she was hit by Garin with the back of her hand. After a tear, the entire bandage on her back completely collapsed and shattered. Even the bandage on her chest was also directly shattered. A pair of white jade like the rabbit suddenly popped up, extremely tempting. It's so fast, Xylan didn't care at all. He was indeed a cultivator. He didn't care about the spring light leaking out of his body. He pounced on him again, using a set of close quarters grapples, interlocking with each other, and pressing forward step by step. All the places he grabbed were the numb parts of Garin's most vulnerable joints. Garin has extensive experience in dealing with this kind of close combat, and his physical fitness at this time is completely better than that of ordinary people, reaching nearly twice the level of a normal big man. Even if Xylan is strong enough, she is still a woman, and she is also young and underdeveloped at this time. Perfect, the strength and speed are slower. The two of them fought against each other, their fists, wind, and kicks constantly intersecting. Spiral leg, suddenly Xylan rolled to the ground, and his leg swept towards Garin's leg. The force was so strong that if an ordinary person was hit by the sweep, it would directly break his bones. A series of leg sweeps formed one arc after another, constantly catching up. Garen's slight vertical jump can always avoid being hit at the most critical moment. You can only hide, Xylan yelled. Hide, Garen smiled, lowered his right leg, and moved his left leg straight forward to meet him without any tricks. Bang! The legs were intertwined, and the pants and bandages were torn and scattered at the same time. Galleon was relatively good, but the huge force directly tore Xylan's tight bandage apart, and all the white bandages on one thigh fell apart. Now her upper body was naked, and half of her lower body was looming, almost exposing her lower body. Still fighting? Garen asked with a smile. Of course, Xylan didn't hesitate at all, rolled forward and continued to get closer. I haven't lost yet. Both fists struck out in succession, occasionally mixed with a blow to sweep Tang's legs. Hiss. The two of them exchanged punches and kicks again, and the last bit of bandage on Xylan's body was completely shattered and scattered. Stop making trouble. Garen stretched his arms, and from slow to fast, he instantly launched a series of hammer fists. His hands were like sledgehammers, and the first blow hit Xylan's right shoulder with lightning speed. Bang! She took 2 steps back. The second punch hit her chest and breasts, making her a little dazed. The third punch. Garen made a spin, walked around behind her, and punched 3 times in a row. Each hit her lower back, making a thunderous vibration. There was a loud bang, and Xylan was knocked away and fell hard to the ground, unable to move again. Hard enough, she was still able to speak, and actually laughed. This is enough. Are you coming yet? Garen looked down at her. I haven't lost yet. Xylan's complexion became increasingly flushed for some reason, and a pink blush appeared on his neck. Keep going. She managed to stand up again. This is the 12 flying dragon fist I want to teach you. Garen's fists touched each other lightly, making a collision sound like wood. Watch it. In an instant, he ran away and appeared like a ghost in front of Xylan, who had just gotten up. Bang 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 bang. The fists flew towards Xylan almost at the same time like raindrops, bringing out countless after images and hitting her chest and abdomen. As soon as she turned around, Garen's fist doubled in ferocity and hit Xylan on the back again. The two oscillating forces before and after actually cancelled each other out, causing Xylan to stand still. With the last punch, Garen slapped his hands down and pushed. Coax. Xylan's shoulders sank and he rolled forward more than 10 meters, almost hitting the wall. She spit out a mouthful of blood. Ha ha. It's great. Come again. Her voice changed a little. That's enough, you don't have the strength to resist anymore, Garen said lightly. He faintly smelled an inexplicable strange smell, a faint scent of virgin body. Hey? Why does it feel so painful when you hit me, but it feels so comfortable at the same time? Xylan also felt a little confused while lying on the ground. Isn't this guy stupid and thick? A few dark threads appeared in Garen's mind. Don't be too polite and not look at her. It's really amazing. Xylan sat on the ground and pointed at Garen with a mocking look on his face. They are all people who pursue absolute power. What's the point of caring about a mere body? This left Garen completely speechless. Even after experiencing 3 worlds, this was the first time that he encountered such a weird and wonderful creature. If it hadn't been for this accident, he might not have been able to discover the masochistic nature of Xylan, and he also had cute attributes. I'm going out first. This is a matter of basic courtesy. Garen had no choice but to turn around and walk towards the door. It's up to you. How can you pursue the ultimate in power if you can't even look past this worldly restraint? Xylan's ridicule came from behind. At first I thought you were not one of those common people, but now it seems that you can't escape these things either. It's a pity. This is weird. Garen stumbled. He really couldn't understand what kind of environment this guy grew up in. As soon as he opened the door, Garen heard a voice coming from behind him. The maid standing at the door also heard it and suddenly showed a dumbfounded expression. "You guys. Go get a tissue." Garen felt nameless anger, but also a little powerless. This kind of weirdness can no longer be described as shameful. If this is what it looks like without moral restraint, then he would rather not. "Oh, I know." The little maid was startled, her face suddenly turned red like a red apple. She took a sneak peek inside, and trotted away quickly. Garen saw the maids still in the living room, all of them with red faces. These were the other students at school who had been invited to help. Most of them were untrained girls. When they heard this, they were immediately shocked. His face was flushed. At this time, the maid who had just run away ran back again, blushing and lowering her head and asking in a low voice, "Excuse me, do you want this?" She shyly took out a small transparent condom and handed it to Garen. "Just a tissue." Garen scratched his hair and said speechlessly. "Actually, Xylan and I have nothing to do with each other. You have to understand, it was just an accident during training. You understand?" he explained patiently. The little maid seemed to have misunderstood something, and she suddenly had a look of understanding on her face. "Oh, I understand, it's that one." At this moment, Long had the urge to roar into the sky. Looking at the lustful expressions on the faces in the hall, he knew that this time he had completely fallen into the yellow river and could not be washed away. He quickly took the paper and threw it to Xylan. Seeing the narrow expression on this guy's face, he immediately understood that this guy did it on purpose. "This is the power of the world, let's see." She sat on the ground and laughed. "To be honest, this guy is not bad looking. He is pretty. He has a good figure and a good face, but he is a bit fierce. He likes to fight and is careless. If he didn't have the most advanced scar repair surgery, he would probably pretend to have 7 breasts. A scarred man is no big deal." Recalling the cartoon he had seen on Earth, several black threads popped up in Garen's mind again. "Keep sitting if you want to die." "I'm just sitting like this, why don't you hit me?" Xylan looked like he wanted to be beaten. "It just so happens that I haven't had enough fun yet." "Me?" Garen was speechless. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 822. He and Xylan left the room and changed their clothes. This guy was still smacking his lips and reminiscing about the previous feeling. The two of them sat down in a single room of the small restaurant, each had a cup of hot tea, picked it up and drank it slowly. "This time the goods are coming again. Should I have the team send them directly to your factory or somewhere?" Xylan took a big sip and slowly put down the teacup and asked. "Just send it to the factory. I'll take the prepared experimental water to solve it." Galen nodded. He specially found a so-called experimental water. It seemed mysterious, but it was actually an ordinary mediating fluid. It is mainly used to cover up the process of his peacock skill absorbing the components of malachite. Fortunately, the absorption process of his peacock technique will not be visible to ordinary people who are not familiar with the spirit. Those countless blue lines may seem clear, but in fact they are invisible to ordinary people, even the masters of consciousness. Garen once quietly found Xylan. "I tried it with one of my bodyguards. That guy was a 3rd level consciousness level. He was said to be a bodyguard. In fact, Xylan respected him more. The 3rd level consciousness level was already considered a high-level talent, even if it was not as powerful as the actual combat level 3 in the military. But it is not something that ordinary forces can invite. Through that person's attempt, the blue line of peacock kung fu will indeed not be discovered by ordinary people." "That's okay." Xylan raised his hand and looked at his watch. "The convoy has almost arrived." "Okay, I'll go pick up the goods, or stay at the same place." Garen stood up. "Of course, today's points will be credited directly to your account, right?" Xylan was too lazy to get up to see him off, so he asked directly. "It's up to you. I'll deduct it from the account. In fact, There's no need to be so serious about the money. Galen waved his hand, turned around and walked out of the small hall, casually handing the tea in his hand to the maid at the door. After leaving Xylan's villa and walking along the small white garden outside the door, Galen unexpectedly saw two young girls entering the villa from the other side door. They seemed to be Xylan's friends. That guy also has normal female friends. How weird. After adjusting his collar, he walked out through the garden gate. The car arranged by Xylan was already waiting for him outside. A pure black streamlined Cassipa car that he liked looked like a small flying fish-type starship. The black body was decorated with electronic eye lights all over, and the jets at the back were like densely packed gun barrels. He opened the door and got in. The driver was a middle-aged man who looked very steady. "Old place?" he asked in a low voice. "Well, I have to trouble you again, Uncle Kaiwei." "What did you say?" The driver smiled and slowly started the vehicle. Sitting in the car, watching the gradually regressing image outside the car window, pedestrians on the roadside passed by the car window from time to time, and hover cars were overtaken one after another, and sometimes the owners of the cars were honking in displeasure from behind. Starting from where the college is located, that is, near where Xylan lives, we continue along the Hipan City Ring Road and pass through a large student residential area. This is a housing area purchased or rented by many students who do not want to live in the college. Then there is the commercial district, where the flow of people and vehicles is gradually increasing. There were a lot of traffic lights in the commercial district. After waiting for 5 or 6 red lights in a row, more than half an hour passed before I could barely penetrate the commercial district and enter the real edge ring road. There were far fewer vehicles on the ring road. Garen was bored and sent some messages to Nanosawa's home to inquire about the recent situation. My parents are very suitable for their new jobs, and they have worked very hard to adapt to their jobs. They have been working at the bottom all year round. The position mentioned is neither high nor low, it is just right, and it is just right for them to play their greatest role. Now I communicate occasionally, and my tone of voice has become more confident and cheerful, not as dull and taciturn as before. They actually didn't know that all this was due to Galen's efforts. They thought that their silent efforts had finally made the company take notice and promoted them to new positions. Knowing the general situation at home, Garen was satisfied, and then asked about the situation of his younger brothers and sisters. "Your sister is now following a gangster named Angzi to join the society. No matter what we advise, she won't listen. She breaks things and loses her temper at every turn." At the mention of her youngest daughter, the mother felt aggrieved and helpless. When she spoke, the cheerfulness I felt at the beginning suddenly disappeared. "The last time we came back was a week ago. We almost called the police, thinking she was missing. But she suddenly ran home and went to bed to find out she was okay. Now we don't even dare to ask about her personal affairs. Once again, more than 10 gangsters pick her up at the door of your house and go out for dinner." The mother sighed. "Fortunately, your brother is very obedient. He is still working in that pastry shop while attending night school. I heard from him that the people at that workplace are very gentle and he likes it very much. Even if the conditions at home are better, I don't want to give up this job." "I told him to go to a regular school before." "What did he say?" Garen asked with a slightly raised eyebrow. "He feels that he has been delayed for so long. He probably won't be able to keep up with the pace of regular school and won't be able to integrate in. He can also go to night school, and he can also take formal exams when he comes out," his mother answered. "As long as he makes his own decision," Garen nodded. "But recently, your father and I discovered that there seems to be something wrong with your brother." Mother hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "What's wrong?" "I feel like I've been secretive all day long. I don't know what I'm doing. My voice has become thinner, my whole body seems to have turned white, and my chin has become sharper. If we hadn't seen each other every day, I would have thought it was someone else." My mother also said on the terminal screen with a confused look on her face. If you ask him anything, he won't say anything. He's just as worried as that girl. Is that so? I will talk to him when I have time. Maybe I have something annoying that I feel embarrassed to talk about. Garen smiled and said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Well, fortunately no, you have grown up and are finally sensible. His mother looked at Garen with a look of relief. Unknowingly, in this short period of time, Garen gradually became the backbone of the family and the pillar that supported the family. Turning off the terminal, he gently rubbed the watch screen, feeling the cool and smooth touch on it. He said nothing, just sat quietly and thought about something. The driver, Uncle Kaiwei, glanced at him in the rearview mirror and did not speak to disturb him. The vehicle drove quickly on the ring road, and after more than 10 minutes, it finally arrived at the delivery location, an abandoned old factory. The surroundings are desolate and uninhabited, and only occasionally a few wild cats and dogs can be seen passing through and burrowing into the surrounding grass. 2 white pickup trucks were already waiting at the factory gate. A young man in white clothes occupied the side of the car. As soon as the man saw Garen getting out of the car, he immediately took the initiative to greet him. "This time, I'd like you to come over and inspect the goods in person." He shook hands with Garen and said with a smile on his face, "This guy has thin cheeks and a military temperament. First of all, he has served in the military. It's right to come and take a look at the goods I want." Garen nodded and walked up to the back of the truck. He opened the trunk door with a few clicks and looked inside. In the dark carriage, there was a large wooden box. Jumping on the car, Garen quickly opened the box, which was filled with white polished stones. Each one is about the size of a fist, and the quality is good at first glance. "Don't worry, these are the best products we have carefully selected, and they are all good," the thin man outside the carriage said loudly. Garen picked up 2 pieces and seemed to be rubbing them to check the quality of the white-colored stones. In fact, he was secretly using the peacock skill to check the quality of the stones. "It's really good." After checking, these stones were indeed very heavy. He put down the stones in his hands, closed the box, and jumped out of the car again. "You can send it directly to Factory 1. We will take over the goods. You can go back and deliver the goods." The thin man smiled and nodded. He was not from Xylin. He and the other driver were staff from Vivian and Blue Narcissus. They were specially hired by Garen to deal with various minor troubles. They were considered as seconded personnel. After successfully receiving the goods, Galen got into the truck with a new driver and returned along the original road. There wasn't much traffic this time, and I returned to Black Pen Academy in 20 minutes. Without any delay, he jumped out of the car and returned to his dormitory, took out the prepared experimental water, got into the truck compartment alone, and asked the driver to drive directly to the factory. He stayed alone in the carriage, and no one was allowed in. In the dark carriage, Garen felt the car shaking slightly, but he didn't care. He looked up at the electronic camera eye inside the carriage. "Reach out and cover it directly to the blind corner. Then put on the small hat that has been prepared to cover the monitoring line of sight." After preparing everything, he sat down cross-legged and looked at a whole box of white-colored light stones in front of him. "This is the key impact absorption," he murmured in a low voice, looking at the attribute bar at the bottom of his field of vision. He was only about 20% away from the 4th level of Peacock skill. Such a box of white-colored light stones will definitely be able to break through the bottleneck and truly enter the 1st level of consciousness. Let's get rid of Little Crescent Moon and enter the 1st level of consciousness to gain real power of our own. He took a deep breath and reached out to open the lid of the box. Hipan Riverside. Huh. 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 Clint was sweating profusely, bending over with his hands on his knees and panting. Looking at the pile of black mecha fragments in front of him, he suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. How? I finally put it together into a complete system. Looking at this pile of fragments, although it looks miserable, in fact this pile of things can already be used to initially identify and judge the enemy's sensing capabilities. How about what? What else can you do if you're just doing physical work? Chayu said impatiently. Don't disturb me, I'm still checking the original internal wiring. Alas, Clin felt discouraged. He originally thought he would be praised by Chayu. What to do next? Continue to assemble the parts. Just follow the drawing I taught you before and assemble the parts into the shape I want, Chayu explained, sounding a little absent-minded, obviously busy with something else. Understood. Krillin's hair was blown back by the river wind, making him look like a furry children's toy. He walked over and inspected the retrieved parts. Clin was about to move a piece when suddenly he saw a man walking slowly by the river bank from a distance. The man's figure was very familiar, but a little strange. Wearing black clothes, he covered himself tightly even on such a sunny day. He also wore a peaked cap and large sunglasses, covering most of his face. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 823. Alan, Clin called tentatively. The other party was looking around, but Clin was blocked by a pile of parts. When he heard the shout, he immediately spotted Clin and trotted over. Is it really Alan? When the other person came closer, Clin was surprised to recognize the man in black. Why are you dressed like this and you are not a big star? You look like you are afraid to meet people. Bolan stopped to rest, slightly out of breath. Clin, do you know what happened to my body? Ever since you talked to me that day, I suddenly felt that there were a lot of unknown things in my mind, and my body seemed to be strangely different. For some reason, Clin always felt that there was something strange about Alan in front of him, as if something was wrong. Actually, it's nothing, it's just that I had an accident. I need your help with a friend of mine. Before he finished speaking, his eyes suddenly widened, and his gaze drifted behind Bolan and looked towards the river bank in the distance. What is that? Before the voice fell, the small white dot above the river bank suddenly flew towards the side. It was a huge blood-sucking mosquito with a pure white surface as smooth as a mirror. It looked like a high-tech product at first glance. The most prominent thing was its blood-red eyes and blood-sucking spikes that were more than 1 meter long. It looks extremely ferocious. Mosquito immediately spotted the two Clins here. Suspicious target found, preliminary approach is in progress, consciousness force field sampling is in progress. This mosquito was more than 2 meters high and 2 meters wide. It looked like a blood-sucking mosquito magnified countless times. At this time, it was flying towards the two of them with a buzzing sound of vibrating wings. The target is determined to be one of the fragments in the verification, and it is not unfolded. You can start trying to attack and recover it. A cold mechanical sound came from the mosquito. In an instant, his cold, blood-red eyes stared at Clin and Burin. Is this? Damn it! It's a swarm drone. Chayu's voice was suddenly recognized, and angrily rang out from her mind, someone has discovered me. Run away. Huh, Clin was stunned on the spot and did not react. Hiss. Amidst the sound of two jets fired by something, the white mosquito's two sharp thin legs suddenly broke apart, and the automatic jets flew towards Clin and the two. These two thin legs, emitting thick red flames, are clearly two camouflaged ground attack missiles. Both Clin and Burin were stunned, completely unable to realize what was going on. It's a compression missile, Chiyu's voice sounded quickly. In an instant, Clin suddenly understood. Everything Chayu said seemed to be true. What forbidden mechas, what unknown forces were chasing him, what crises he might encounter in the future. Everything was true. And he originally thought that the other party was just joking. How could this kind of plot, which is only in novels, come to him inexplicably? Anyway, although he was following Chiyu's instructions, he didn't believe it at all in his heart. But now, seeing the two compression missiles shooting towards him at high speed, Clint suddenly understood everything at once. At this moment, it actually took less than 2 seconds from the launch of the missile to the moment it flew over, but in these short 2 seconds, Clint thought of a lot. Looking at the missiles getting closer and closer, everything seemed to be slowing down, and his mind became increasingly blank. He had never encountered such a situation before. What should he do? Hide. In what direction are you hiding? Where? How to hide? What action? He didn't know anything, and a feeling of helplessness that he had never experienced before came to his heart. By the way. And Alan, he suddenly remembered Bullen in front of him. We can't involve him too. We can't implicate him. Clint suddenly felt an inexplicable strength welling up from deep in his heart. He stretched out his hand and used his greatest strength and fastest speed to push Bullen hard in front of him. Get away first. Why do you care about other people's lives? Chiyu hid in his mind and cursed. Suddenly he saw that Clint's movements were in the wrong direction. He made calculations instantly, and his brain almost exploded with anger. You idiot! Go left. Go left. Oh my God. Why are you so stupid? It could have been easily avoided, but Clint put him in a certain death situation. The direction in which he pushed the person and threw himself was exactly towards the missile. Forget it, I'll take action myself. In desperation, Chiyu had no choice but to interfere with the missile's flight trajectory and deflect it to both sides. Sure enough, after a burst of interference signals were sent out, the two missiles immediately flew towards both sides. After 2 loud explosions, everything calmed down. Chiyu breathed a sigh of relief. If you continue like this, I will be scared to death by you sooner or later. Target found. Self-destruction process is starting suddenly. The white mosquitoes over there made a mechanical sound. What? Chiyu was dumbfounded. Clint, who was also relieved, was also dumbfounded. Watching the mosquito shrink into a ball, it automatically combined and decomposed into a silver-white sphere, with a reddish glow gradually appearing on the surface. Holy shit! This is a super cloud explosive bomb, Chiyu couldn't help but cursed. A huge destructive weapon with a range of 200 meters. The power of the super cloud explosive bomb would kill anyone even if they were hiding in a cave. It will also instantly remove all oxygen from the surrounding air. Damn it, you're all. He didn't finish his words. Only a huge roar was heard. Boom. In an instant, a little white light lit up, exploded instantly, and turned into white clouds that spread in all directions. A white mushroom cloud rose from the river bank, tens of meters high, covering the surrounding 200 to 300 meters of ground. Most of the mecha fragments were blown away by the explosion, and only some sharp ones were inserted into the ground and stuck in place. The violent cloud explosion blew away all the surrounding debris. The terrifying impact tore apart steel, tore apart the cement of the river embankment, and collapsed the ground, exposing the black soil several meters deep below. In the middle of the white cloud, a large red flame burst out, covering an area of 200 meters in an instant. At this moment, a dark red suddenly lit up in Clint's position, a deep dark red like blood. Thick and sticky, like countless drops of blood condensed after evaporation. The Red King, a faint and deep voice sounded from the air. Puff. Countless blood-colored clouds surged out from the blood drops, and the blood cloud slowly formed a huge sphere, with nebulae flowing inside, the Milky Way twinkling, and countless starlights appearing. Among countless galaxies, an extremely huge red mecha was suspended quietly in the center of the nebula. The humanoid red mecha has an extremely long tail that surrounds itself like a snake. Click. The mecha slowly raised its head, as if looking up at something in the sky and universe. Boom. The blood cloud exploded violently, turning into a circle of crimson ripples. The exploding red cloud directly offset the flame impact of the supercloud bomb that was sweeping in. At the same time, an inexplicable vibration suddenly spread farther and farther around. Bottom of some abyss. A pure white mecha soaked in magma suddenly opened its eyes, and the third golden eye on its forehead tore open. Taboo. Ha 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 ha. Finally found it, a low and weird man's laughter came from inside the mecha. The white mecha was more than 60 meters tall and slowly emerged from the magma. Revealing an exquisite and detailed body, two huge white shoulder armors stretched out from both sides of the body, looking like a second pair of arms from a distance. Magma-like red fluorescent lines flowed in the center of the machine body, and several red lines formed a huge light character. Around the abyss, two white mechas with green lines of light on their chests were standing. They were the great bright mechas that broke into the Black Disk domain. Black Disk Academy. Hall of Power. The virtual image positions of the three professors suddenly lit up, and three figures appeared in the positions one by one. This fluctuation is the dean's hand slightly clenched the armrest of the seat. Taboo Vice Dean Symes replied in a low voice, "Finally, the legendary core of the taboo appears here. Do you feel the fluctuating information in it? Is the Red King an opportunity or a disaster?" The old woman lowered her eyes. "No matter what, find out the location of that thing as soon as possible." The owner. "It's too early to protect or capture the principal of the academy," made the final decision. "We can only bring Black Star back." "No, there are not many people who can feel this fluctuation. Just let Metro handle it." Vice Dean Symes shook his head. "Black Star's hurried return will only make others more suspicious and focus their attention." "That's fine." Dean Cruz von Sawa stretched out her hand and tapped it lightly in front of her, and a virtual display screen suddenly appeared in front of her. "The good thing is that this wave can only be felt by those close to us. If other domains also discover it, the consequences will be disastrous. I must set up interference wave immediately." Inside the carriage, Garen inexplicably felt that a slight fluctuation in consciousness seemed to be spreading faintly. Originally, he could not feel this wave. If his soul was not much stronger than ordinary people and he had several soul seeds, he would not be able to sense this power. "This is..." He stretched out his hand and pressed it on the white-colored light stone, intending to absorb the malachite component. Feeling this subtle fluctuation, it seems to contain some kind of message. It seems that something big has happened. Garen's soul seed has the ability to sense the general trend of the world. He used to use this ability to judge the location of the main character of the world's general trend. But now, his soul seed has such a clear feeling again. After hesitating for a moment, he put aside his distracting thoughts. "No matter what kind of changes, I can't get involved in it now. Only when you are strong enough can you have the capital to gain profits." Gathering his energy, he pressed down hard with one hand and closed his eyes. Hiss. Countless blue lines slowly poked out of the palm of the hand and pierced the white-colored light stone in the box. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 824. Large amounts of white malachite essence were absorbed by the blue thread and continued to pour into Garen's body. On the attribute bar set by the field of vision, the changes in the Peacock Cold Hell technique gradually began. Military martial arts, Cold Hell Peacock Kung Fu, the secret martial arts of life, the source is unknown. The second level of heart transformation, the heart is transformed based on the Peacock bloodline of Cold Hell. In order to achieve the purpose of gradually strengthening the whole body's physical fitness. Transformation time, completely achieved. The third layer of stomach modification is completed. The Peacock has strong phagocytic ability. The stomach can swallow almost any substance. Combined with the heart modification, it produces ability devouring. Acquire the ability talent, devour. The Cold Hell Peacock skill developed the most basic and powerful talent of the Peacock Mother, and produce the seeds of distortion. The fourth floor is 78% complete. 78%, slowly jumped to 80%, then 90, 100. The moment he reached 100, Garen suddenly felt a cold current surge from his heart and flow to every part of his body. Seems like a big hit. Tianli suddenly jumped into the ice pool. It felt comfortable at first, but what followed was coldness, so cold that my body ached. Well. Garen couldn't help but make a sound, but he didn't notice at all that his body sitting cross-legged in the carriage had gradually undergone special changes. The change. There was a feeling that his whole body was beating like a heart. The surface of his body was covered with a thin layer of blue ice, and the ice layer is still spreading to the surroundings, spreading along the floor of the carriage towards other things around it. His hair gradually turned slightly blue, as if his physique was gradually being transformed by a secret weapon. The pupils of both eyes are also getting lighter and lighter. The blue becomes a very deep dark blue. At this time, on the attribute bar, the icon gradually blurred and then became clear, and the original explanation information of the Cold Hell Peacock Kung Fu began to slowly change. Military Martial Arts, Cold Prison Peacock Skill, Secret Martial Arts of Life, 4th level, 5th level completion rate 7%. Obtain the ability talent, Devour, devour all things to restore yourself. Obtain ability talent, Seed of Distortion, causing chaos is the peacock's biggest hobby. Obtain the ability talent, Chaotic Cold Territory, it naturally causes space-time oscillations, with the main body as the center, and emits natural cold air to a 10-meter surrounding area, forming a chaotic low-temperature zone as low as 10 degrees. At the same time, there may be a small probability of causing the enemy to become confused and attack randomly. It seems that this chaotic cold realm is the ability you get after completing the 4th level. It's really good to get an ability before you pass the 1st level Galen. After carefully feeling his own abilities, the amazing thing is that every ability created by the secret martial arts of life is as natural as his natural ability. It fits perfectly with the body, and when used, it is like using attribute powers. It's as if he was born with this talent. It's really a magical secret weapon of life. He looked around, and all the items on the ground and carriages around him were faintly emitted. A stream of cold gas came out, and the source of this cold gas was himself. It's not very useful. It might be very useful in the secret martial world, but this is a world where mechas are powerful enough to destroy stars. Such an ability. Strength doesn't mean much. He carefully felt the cold air emanating. It didn't require him to expend any physical energy. It seemed to be the same as the instinctive body temperature. Try. Then he slowly suppressed the chill and restrained it. Within a 10-meter range, if it is suppressed and then released suddenly, it may have a scary effect. After a long period of fierce fighting, it can be released. It also affects the opponent's body temperature, which is good. Although there is a temperature circulation and constant temperature system in the mecha, it requires energy, and Galleon's chill seems to be able to penetrate the mecha's obstacles. And even has a small probability of affecting sanity. In this way, if it develops and becomes stronger, its role in large-scale wars will be unparalleled. Slowly putting away the coldness all over his body, Garen once again checked other changes in himself, the most important of which was his consciousness. Consciousness, 1st level lower level, obtain a certain level of enhancement of the secret martial arts of life. Exercise method, Black Disc Control, free training method of Black Disc Academy, continuous training effect is weak, the improvement speed is 12 years / each level, the maximum is 1. Class. Finally. Garen was filled with emotion at this moment. He had always relied on Crescent Moon to be careful about being exposed anytime and anywhere, and he was still unable to fight. Over time, if it exceeds a certain time, it will cause the Crescent Moon to collapse and strike. And now, it has finally reached the true 1st level. At this moment, he was truly on the same starting line as the geniuses in the academy. Although he was still a little late and a little slow, he was always on the same starting line. Better than just using crescent moon camouflage. A lower-level member of the first class. In the academy, he is considered the elite of the general class. It is natural to be ranked in the top 3 seats in the class. The chief is probably not considered to be one. But at least it is out of the scope of general student standards. If other compulsory subjects meet the standards, it will be the same when you apply for the graduation exam now. Okay. Seeing that the box was full of high-energy fuel powder, Galen poured the experimental water he brought in and stirred it a few times to conceal his absorption. Trace. The factory hadn't arrived yet, so Garen was not in a hurry. He just continued to sit in the carriage and began to check the changes in physical fitness after the improvement of Peacock's skill. He remembered the original data clearly. No Siwalin strength 1.7, agility 1.5, constitution 1.8, intelligence 1.5, potential 0%, soul limit 40. But now, he moved his gaze. No Siwalin strength 2.1, agility 2.0, constitution 2.7, intelligence 1.9, potential 0%, soul limit 40. Strength is increased by 0.4, agility is increased by 0.5, and physique is up to 0.9. It is worthy of being a creature that relies on physique for its livelihood. Intelligence is increased by 0.4. Overall, the quality is improved. The promotion is very comprehensive, but the focus is on physical fitness. He stood up and felt the sensation of his body being greatly strengthened. This quality has reached his peak in the secret martial arts world. Ordinary bullet thermal weapons had no effect on him at that time, but that times were different too. The secret martial arts he practiced at that time was the Golden Image Kung Fu, a defensive secret martial arts known for its defensive power. And when it reached the highest level, it was completely useless. It is not an ordinary level, so reaching the physical level does not mean that he has reached the actual combat power of the secret martial arts world. Speaking of it, Shenzi Maiwu doesn't seem to have much specific combat experience, or a tendency to practice certain aspects of his own qualities, but more like the purpose is to evolve the level of life. Garen suddenly thought of this. As the practice of cold prison peacock technique continued to improve, it was developing to an inhuman level, and Jia Long felt this in his heart. Putting away his thoughts, he quickly disposed of the high-energy fuel powder and closed the lid of the box. This thing is as precious as gold. The car also slowed down at this time, which was a sign that it was almost there. Not long after, Garen felt the car shake violently and finally slowly stopped. He stood up and opened the cover on the monitor. "We've arrived, Mr. Nono," the driver's voice came from the monitor. "New." Galen opened the carriage door, got out of the car, and walked directly to the factory not far away with a box weighing hundreds of kilograms in one hand. There are no people around here in the wilderness. There is only a lonely factory not far ahead. The 4 or 5 bodyguards who came down quickly surrounded Garen and surrounded him towards the factory. You must know that the box in Galen's hand is a common point for millions, so the protection measures are naturally very strict. After walking a few steps, the guards in the factory also came out. Dozens of them had laser guns and knives on their waists, and they exuded a strong aura. Obviously they are all masters who have seen blood. There were no surprises in the handover. Among these people were the subordinates of Celine and Vivian, as well as the eyeliners of the Blue Narcissus people. The surrounding people seemed to be desolation. In fact, there are hidden manpower behind the scenes. After earning hundreds of thousands of dollars several times, people from all 3 parties began to pay more and more attention to this business, because it still has continuous expanding trend. The person in charge of the factory is Gosen, a young man with yellow hair. He is wearing a suit and leather shoes and greets Galen when he comes out. He looked carefully at the galleons. Everyone around seemed to be recognizing something. Mr. Nono, although our personal relationship is somewhat superficial, as a major shareholder with 4 levels of income, you should find something. Bodyguard. What about Kend? I will consider this aspect. Garen nodded. He really wanted to recruit some subordinates to protect his own safety. Earning millions a month. My income is still rising, and it will be difficult to deal with if I am targeted. The hot weapons in this world are not like those in the previous worlds. So simple, who knows what weird and powerful weapons might pop up. Mr. Kinder went to Sicheria and should be on his way back now. Well, I asked him to go. He hasn't come back yet. Did he encounter any problems on the way? Garen nodded. It seems that the troops stationed on the road are temporarily under martial law, which has delayed the return journey. Do you have any good suggestions about bodyguards? Garen asked directly. He knew that this guy was from outside the land, and he used to belong to that kind of people. A talented person, this guy defected to 6 different forces, but in the end he left on his own. He was the type who couldn't settle down. The most important thing is, he does not belong to any of the 3 major cooperative forces. Speaking of candidates, I really have a few. Gosen smiled, and walked to the factory with Galen protected by a group of people. The giant shark mercenary from Maria Domain has 12 people. It is said that it can create a terrifying firepower network of 40 people. There is also the charming mercenary group. All of them are standard mercenaries composed of beautiful women, 7 in number, and if the price of the beauties is right, you know. Ge. And Kong gave Jialong a lustful look. I only look at strength and cost. Garen's expression remained unchanged. Strength, these 2 are both level 2 mercenary groups, with average strength around level 2. The captain and deputy captain are both level 3, and have their own unique skills. In terms of expenses, it just so happens that they are on vacation now and can take on a light job, so it is not expensive. The giant shark mercenary group costs 200,000 a month. Just take care of food and housing. The charm is 140,000 a month. Gosen obviously has some connections with these 2 mercenary groups.